Hi Scott, my name's Tom. I'm the owner of Family Marine here in beautiful downtown Willmar, Minnesota. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for the purchase of your brand new Barletta L23UC. I know that you're just going to be ecstatic about this pontoon. It is absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to hear from you after you've used it for a few times and let us know how you like it. So here we are at the lake today. We're about to lake test the pontoon. And what I want to do is do a little bit of a run through with you and show you how all the things work on the pontoon. I'm not sure if you've ever had a pontoon before or not, or a large horsepower motor, but I want to run through things. What I find is the more I can educate you, the better I can educate you, the more you're aware of things that are going on within the boat, and the better experience you'll have as a boat owner. So with that being said, I want to start back here with the motor. Now, I'm not sure if you, again, are an experienced boater, but if you're not, these holes in this lower unit are the water intakes. Those holes have to be in the water in order to start this engine. You cannot run the motor with these holes out of the water. And you can tilt the motor so high that these will come out of the water and you can't run it in that position. So you have to make sure there's holes on each side of the lower unit, that those holes are in the water so that the water pump can send water to the engine to cool it. Now, you'll notice your 15-pitch stainless steel propeller. That's a Mercury inertia prop, outstanding propeller. You're going to get lots of hole shot with this prop. In the leading edge of the lower unit, right down towards the bottom, is a little bitty hole. That's what we call a pitot. And that runs a speedometer. So what happens is water goes in this hole up through the lower unit into a pressure sensor on the engine, and that pressure sensor sends a signal to the speedometer, tells it how fast you're going. Now, an issue that we can have with this little bitty hole is that it can somewhat easily get clogged with sand or seaweed or algae, and the speedometer quits working. So in order to fix that, it's pretty simple. You take a small paper clip, stick it in that hole, wiggle it around a little bit, clean the sand, clean the algae, and go back to using it, and everything's fine. But do not blow compressed air up into this hole. You'll ruin the sensor up on the engine if you do that. Okay? Over here, and Corey, you're going to have to get in real tight to see this. Right now we've got the motor in the trailering position. That's this little locking mechanism right here. So what we do is we tilt the motor up a little bit, we push this unit in and flip that back, and now we're ready to bring the motor down. So Scott, you're going to want to check that. I'm not sure what kind of transport truck they're bringing to pick this up, but if the motor is hanging out the back of the transport truck, I'm going to put this trailering bracket into position. Just like I did there, I put a little bit of weight on the motor, or on the trailering bracket. Here's the trim and tilt switch on the motor. By the way, this is a freshwater wash system. If you wanted to use that, you can plug your garden hose into that white fitting, turn on your garden hose, and that'll flush any salt water out of your engine. I don't think you're in salt water, so you probably don't need to worry about that. Okay? Now, for braking on the motor, what the owner's manual wants you to do is take it kind of easy for the first 10 hours. Yeah, you can crack it open every now and then. They actually tell you to do that. But the theory is you don't have to baby the engine, but then you don't want to pound on it either. You don't want to run across the lake at wide open throttle for 10 miles when the engine's brand spanking new. Sure, crack it open a little bit every now and then. That's fine. Now, on this engine, there are a couple of warning systems. First of all, when the engine is running, there's a stream of water coming out right down here, and that stream of water is called a telltale. That stream of water tells us that our water pump impeller is pumping water to the engine. There's also an overheating warning horn up at the dash. Should you let's say, get seaweed blocking the water intakes and you're not getting cooling water to your engine and the engine overheats, that horn will go on and the motor will slow down to 1,000 RPM or limp mode, okay? Limp so you can get back. Now, what sometimes happens is people don't see the stream of water coming out the side of the engine and they think that they're overheating, but their horn hasn't come on. Well, what's happened is this little bitty hole that blows out the stream of water can get clogged with sand or seaweed or algae and it quits peeing out water. Now that one you can take an air hose and blow into it and clean out any crud that may accumulate in that telltale, okay? Now there's also a low oil pressure warning horn on this engine, and in the event that you have a low oil pressure situation, I've never seen it, 40 years of doing this, I've never seen it, but it could happen. Again, the motor would slow down to 1,000 RPM, no more, and it would get you back. Low oil, and your horn would come on, of course. Okay? Now, owner's manual says that you can run 87 octane or above. If they ever go to E15, nope, you can't use E15. E10 is the maximum amount of alcohol in the gas that you can use. We recommend 91 non-oxygenated. I don't know what you have out in Pennsylvania. Some places I've seen 87 non-oxygenated. So there's no alcohol in the fuel. The problem that we have with alcohol is after sitting for a period of time, 2, 3, 4 weeks in a boat, the alcohol can separate from the fuel, settling to the bottom of the tank, drawing moisture in from the atmosphere, condensating it, turning it to water, because that's what alcohol does. Okay? And then you start your engine, and the next thing you know, this blob of alcohol/water moves over to the fuel pickup and is going into your engine, and it doesn't run. Therefore, we prefer non-oxygenated fuel in our pontoons. I run alcohol in my car because I replenish my fuel every week or so. But in a boat, that's a 55-gallon fuel tank in there. It might take us 2, 3 months to run that fuel through that boat to get fresh fuel in there. Okay? Again, non-oxygenated fuel. Now, down here is our transducer for our depth finder, our Simrad. And as you can see, this is made on a kick-up bracket. So if you're driving along and say you hit a twig or a floating twig, this would pop up. And then your depth finder would go wacko. It wouldn't work anymore. You have to have solid water, no air, on the bottom of this transducer. So you just flip that back down and go back to using it, and you're fine. All right. It's light outside. We got your underwater light, or your under-deck lights installed. You can't really see them under there because they're not on. And it's daylight, you can't really see it. It's a light blue tint during the day. We've got our lifting spakes on our center tube and outer tubes. We've got your stainless steel safety stanchions installed with our chains. So let's take a look at the inside. Oh, before we go on the inside, a couple more things. Oil. To remove this engine hood, right in the back up on top is a little lever. You squeeze that lever and you lift the hood up. Over on the port side of the engine is a yellow dipstick, and you pull the dipstick and there's a knurled area. Halfway in that knurled area is full. Okay? There's a yellow fill cap right at the back of the engine. If you wanted to add oil, you just remove that yellow fill cap and dump some oil in there. And then the oil filter is located on the starboard side of the engine, kind of towards the front. And again, you pop that hood and you can access your oil filter. This hood, there's a lever in the front. Once you take this hood off, there's a lever in the front. You can lift that lever up and this section of the hood comes off. So you can access your complete engine. Now we can take a look at the inside. Okay, here's our 2 batteries. We've tagged, one says engine, one says house. Over here is a battery on-off switch. Now there's 3 positions to this switch. There's off, there's battery number 1, and both combined. And what I'd like you to do, because of the voltage sensitive relay, I'll get to that in a second, what I want you to do is run it on combine or both. So let's say that you go to the sandbar and you're sitting there listening to your stereo all day. Your stereo is running off of your house battery, not your starting battery, your engine battery. So now what you want to do is charge this battery, and by moving this to combine, the alternator on the engine will sense through the voltage sensitive relay which of the two batteries needs to be charged and send the juice from the alternator to the appropriate battery. That way you're not overcharging the other battery. All right? But I always recommend, highly recommend, that when you're not using the boat, when you're done using it, you come back and you shut that battery switch off. That way, if you left anything on up in the helm by mistake, you won't kill your battery. Okay? So the battery on-off switch is very, very important. These cushions here, you can lift those up in different positions, and to get it to recline, you go all the way up and all the way down. Our Ultra Lounge, you can see we have it in the bed position here. There is storage underneath here, and down here you'll see your power steering pump. Okay, plenty more storage underneath there. And then of course our backrest can simply flip to face forward or flip to face backwards, or you pull up and lay it down to get it all the way down. All right, let's take a look towards the helm. We have our ignition switch. We have our power bimini up and down. Pretty simple, pretty basic. Okay, and down here we have a power outlets for plugging in, say, a handheld spotlight, something like that. Now, this little safety lanyard here, it's not required that you use it, it's just required that we give it to you. I get phone calls all the time that Tom, my motor doesn't start, it cranks over but it doesn't start. And I say, well, did you check your safety lanyard? My what? Your safety lanyard, that red cord. Oh, I'll go check that. And here, you know, somebody accidentally knocked it off and this little red switch down here is down and now the motor won't start. So what we want to do is we take this loop and we put it over the red pin, we lift up, and now our motor's ready to start. Okay. I'm going to turn the ignition key to the on position. And first of all, our Smart Craft gauges go to I didn't do it now. It'll tell you some battery okay, voltage okay, things like that. Trim, that's our trim gauge. Water pressure is 0 right now because the engine isn't running. And I can toggle through this to different menus. Engine hours, volts is 12.3. RPM is 0 because our engine is off. There's our battery, engine temp, PSI, telling us it's okay. Right now we have 70% fuel in there. Water temperature 73 degrees. We're not in the water yet. I can go over here. We got 38 gallons of fuel. This one really, this doesn't pertain to you because it's not set up with the equipment on the engine. It's an option. Average runtime, things like that. Estimated range. Again, we won't be using that. There's a digital readout of our speedometer. Here's our speedometer, here's our tachometer. RPM mode, normally I use my tach over here. And those things are shut off, our clock. Okay, now be honest with you, I don't use those gauges very much. I use the Simrad. So when my key comes on, my Simrad boots up, I touch accept. These things are a little bit touchy.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so the first screen that comes up is our engine monitor screen. And we have a speedometer, we have a tachometer, we have a trim gauge. Here's a digital readout of our speed. Here's our fuel. Here's another digital readout, speed over ground. Do you wish to change chart data selection to view the inserted charts? No. SOG is speed over ground. When we're driving, you'll see that. There's our depth gauge, there's our fuel. There's our voltage. There's our fuel again. Fuel up here is in a percentage. Here it's in a gallons. Economy, miles per gallon, and our distance per tank full. Now what's neat about this unit is, first of all, I can touch that and it'll change. It'll give me a digital readout, a numerical readout. Again, I can touch over here, it goes to the same thing. I can touch here, there's our trim gauge. Okay. We can go to this screen and you'll see our active trim. I don't have it on right now, we'll have it on in the lake. We can set our cruise control, speed it up or down. We can set our troll control. Smart tow you don't have, active trim you do. Okay. Now on your active trim, I'm going to set the profile up to 3. There's settings 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now what I found with these, if I set it at 5 and you're running wide open, trimmed up, it starts to porpoise. You're trimmed up too high and the bow starts to go up and down, it starts to porpoise. So I set them at 3. And even sometimes at 3, I can get a little porpoising out of it. Now what's neat about smart trim, active trim, is when you're idling, the motor's going to be all the way down. When you nail the throttle and you're running about 2,000 RPM or more, it's going to automatically trim itself up for you. But you can override that simply by hitting your up and down buttons on your throttle handle. Now, when you override it, it's going to show override here. Okay, and it won't reactivate until you bring it down to idle in neutral. Once you bring it to idle in neutral, then it will reactivate itself. You can nail the throttle and it'll trim automatically for you. Okay. Over here, this is kind of a neat deal. We have bar 1, bar 2. Normally I just set up bar 1. And if I wanted to edit something, I could push edit. And now if I wanted to edit speed over ground, I could change that to any one of these. And you can hit the little arrow. It'll tell you what other is. This one's voltage. We already got that over here. We don't have an oil tank. We can set this screen over here to any one of these items in here that we want just by simply touching the select button. Now I need to go back and I want to go speed over ground. Okay, I can do that by editing any of these. And again, once I'm done, I hit finish and now everything's where it is. All right, here I have my menu button. I have my chart or my GPS. Right now we're on Eagle Lake. We're about ready to go on the lake. I can zoom in, I can zoom out. I can also do that by pinching it with my fingers. I can go to different structures. Here I have a split screen. I'm not in the water, so it's not going to show anything. I don't have radar. I don't have navigation. I don't have time plotter, autopilot. So really, the ones that I'm used to are this one. Here I got a split screen. There I have a different split screen. You don't have radar, of course. So really that one, this is the one that I'm on all the time. It's just so much easier to look at my speed, my depth, my miles per hour, my RPM, my trim. I use this screen, even rather than those gauges up on top. I like this one. But you can use whatever one you want. Okay, I want to show you something about the power steering. So Corey, come around over here. This has what's called U-Flex power steering. Now when you turn your engine on, you have to turn the power steering to on, and the blue light will come on. And you'll notice that there's 3 different settings here. It's normally going to go to the middle setting, which is the normal average run-of-the-mill. And let's say that that setting is 4 turns lock to lock. All right, so normal is 4 turns lock to lock. When I'm going high speed, I want this to not be as sensitive. So when I move it to the big ship's wheel, now it's going to automatically go to 5 turns lock to lock. That way if I'm going fast, the steering wheel input that I put in is only making minor movement on the engine because I'm going fast, right? But when I move it down to the little fish insignia, now that's going to go the opposite direction. That's going to move it to 3 turns. So when I'm docking, for example, I want the motor to turn more quickly because I'm docking and I want it to react more. When I'm going back and forth, pulling it into the dock, I want it to act more quickly. Okay? But normally, it's going to come onto there. There is a setting, and I don't know what it is. I'll look it up. I'll call UFlex and find out what it is so that this comes on with key on power. Okay, you have to turn it on manually right now. There is a setting in there. I don't recall how to do it. I thought it was push and hold for 5 seconds, but that didn't do anything. I'll find out and let you know on that. Okay. Over here, of course, we have our Hertz stereo. Stereo comes on with a key switch. You can turn it off by pushing the power button. And you push this and you can toggle through. Right now it's on radio. There's our Bluetooth, there's auxiliary, there's our USB. Okay, you can toggle through different things. If you have a teenager, he'll love that. Over here, this is our navigation lights and our anchor lights. So up is our navigation, so our red and green up front and our stern light in the back. Off is in the middle, down is anchor light or just our stern light. Off is in the middle. Courtesy lights are our interior lights. You don't have underwater lights, but you do have under deck lights. So those are those blue lights that we put on the outside. It's hooked to that switch. Floor lights, courtesy lights, pretty much the same thing. Actually, yeah, you don't have floor lights. You don't have courtesy lights. You have floor lights. Dimmer, you can dim the floor lights, the interior lights by using the dimmer switch. You do have a bilge pump. Actually, you have 2 bilge pumps in this boat. And you can turn them on. Up and down is up is the front bilge pump, which is underneath the ski storage. Down is the stern bilge pump, which is just ahead of the engine. Our docking lights are our headlights. And of course, our horn button. Corey, I believe you're sending him the owner's manual. In the owner's manual is the certificate of origin for the boat and the motor. And I also put a Pennsylvania watercraft and title application in there for you too. So all you have to do is fill those 2 forms out, bring them to your local deputy register or wherever you get your boat license, finish filling them out, and get your boat tabs. So, Scott, that pretty much takes care of our little walkthrough. You know, one thing that I have found out through the years of being a boat dealer is transportation. It's not uncommon for something to show up during transportation. Things shake loose, trailering is hard on pontoons, things rattle. We're trying to avoid that. We've checked every single item on this pontoon, and yes, it's all working. If you get it and something isn't working, let us know. We can walk you through it. What I see is a wire shakes loose. Little things like that is not uncommon when you're transporting, particularly halfway across the country like we're doing in this situation. So anyway, again, I wanted to say thank you very much for your purchase. We appreciate your business, and I hope you enjoy your pontoon. Thank you much. Bye-bye.